What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a very special holidays edition of the Final Whistle, brought to you by River City 93. I'm your host, as always, Elliot Barr. And before we get started, I just want to say remember to like, share, and subscribe. We're going to be bringing you so many news on the off season that's going to be happening. But we have a special guest on tonight. Not to say low key, I kind of took away from his family maybe 30, 40 minutes to talk about the U20 team. Is Coach Connor. How are you doing, sir? How's everything on your end?
I'm good. I'm good. Just like we said, boys and I are ready to get to Florida and start competing for the finals. But we're doing good though.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's an exciting time. Second time going back to back in the cup. Second time as the South. Is it the Southeast region? Is that the name of the region?
South Atlantic.
South Atlantic region. Okay. I was thinking SEC football. You can tell it was on my
All
mind
good.
already.
All good. It's that time of year.
But South Atlantic champions back to back years, dominating North Carolina football club in the process of doing that. But we're going to start off with we didn't get a chance to talk about it, so just remind listeners, this team played in an earlier cup. It was called the Pathways Cup. Um, if memory serves correctly, the team didn't make it out of the group stage there, but there were strong performances throughout. How do you evaluate the team overall showing in that tournament and how that helped the team throughout the course of the season?
It's kind of been it served well for our preparation for sure, leading up to right now. But I mean, the showing at the Pathway Classic was a good one. Just it showed the boys the small margins this game have. That if you don't put the team away and the chances you create, it can be a long game. Miami. Not making excuses. We were down a guy when they scored a goal, trying to get him back on the field from a bloody nose, get cleaned up. But at the same time, we just didn't handle that whole play in itself to give up that goal. So that's on us. But
Mhm.
we still had plenty of chances even before that and later on in the game to equalize and to even take the lead. And Miami was good. I thought they were a good team, but if you don't put the team away, you don't finish your chances of it. You're not going to win games. So that was ultimately the emphasis around the whole thing. Southern Soccer Academy, decent game from us. They went down a guy, and again, we had chances. Obviously, we got a goal that game and tied it up 1-1, but we had chances to win it, and we just didn't score. So we tied the game, 1-1, which I'll take that over a loss for sure. And then thankfully we put the pieces of the puzzle together against Colorado Switchbacks too, which was nice, beating them 4-0. So good way to end it. But we've been talking about how one goal can change everything. And looking back at the Pathway Classic, had we scored just one more goal, whether it was Miami or the Southern Soccer Academy in one of those games, we would have gone through in the to the
Yeah.
finals based on how the other results went and the goal differentials and all that. So one goal can change everything. Whether it's for or against. Obviously, four would have been better, and that also played into our season as well. So overall, it was a great showing. Good lessons to learn from it. And now we've been using that for this season and using that to prepare for the 20s in the finals.
Yeah. Grafton Kahl earned the best 11 spot, I believe, at right back was a big highlight. Um, for him, how big is that recognition for him personally and for the group development as a whole?
I mean, I can't speak for him personally. I would assume it's obviously it's a nice accolade to have. Every player likes to see their name, So I would assume that he's proud of it and happy with it. But it's also a tribute to his teammates, who train with him day in and day out and make him better and also make him look good on the field, along with his individual standout moments in the games and everything. So I would assume he's happy with it, and then I think that helps the team and when what we're trying to do just with the 20s and what we represent. We always want to have guys, obviously with the first team too. We want to have guys in the team of the week every week, right? Or a team of the tournament, whatever it might be. So it's nice to obviously get that recognition because it shows what we've been doing. But it's not just the individual. It also reflects on the team because we make that player better and that player makes us better, and it's all a collective effort. Along with, yes, there are obviously key moments in games that stand out, but at the end of the day, it's a team sport, and everybody makes everybody look better. So I'm assuming he's happy, but it also reflects well on us, and it's nice to have our names and our badge in those best 11s.
Yeah, and it's also like, I mean, speaking of him individually, we'll talk about some other players as well. But he just committed himself to, I believe, West Virginia.
West Virginia University.
Um, yeah, like for speaking as a head coach, how proud are you to see your guys taking that next step in their not only development as young players, but also as the academics and things like that, moving on to play these big universities.
I mean, it's a with that being said, it really any university, we want all these guys to go to the next level, and any college, honestly, truly is the next level. Obviously, there are names that are bigger than others. We totally understand that. But my path, I always reference it to the boys. I started off at a JUCO for 2 years, and then I transferred. But the JUCO is the next level. Especially with academics and all that stuff too. So I mean, at the end of the day, super happy. Like, it's obviously nice, and yes, West Virginia being a big name, it's awesome to have that recognition. With Richmond Kicker sending another guy there and everything, but just in general, with him getting to the next level and pursuing academics at a good institution and all that, it's very happy for him. That's obviously what we want for the boys. If whatever their next step is, we can't say if it's ultimately it's up to Darren to say you deserve a contract. Do you want to go pro or not? And then it's up to the player to decide that if they want to take that contract or pursue the next level being college. But that's also some of the players' pathways. Every pathway for each player is different. Some players aren't ready to make that jump from the academy to the first team and need an intermediate piece in there, and sometimes things just click, and then they do really, really, really well, and then their next step is the pro game. And obviously you see that a lot in this country with players going from college to MLS, USL, for the next level. Obviously we want guys to do it from the academy standpoint as well, but this sometimes is a necessary next piece. And so either way, we're stoked for the player, to make those jumps. And Grafton signing with West Virginia, that's tremendous, and we couldn't be happier for him.
Yeah, I mean, under your leadership as head coach, we've seen various players go off to college. Andrew Richmond, he just committed to Georgetown, and like we talked about, Grafton Kahl going to West Virginia. And we see others, Gabe Cox doing well at Furman. I think the one jewel you could probably hang your hat on the most, people actually be like, all right, like, who is probably the quote unquote best player to have in your pathway or in your team the last 2 years of your stewardship? It's probably Nick Simmons. I mean, freshman, what was he? I think freshman All-American at UVA. Definitely that led things alight. Did you see this from him in the U20 program? And you saw what he did at UVA this past year?
I mean, like, if you're looking at the goal sheet, I mean, yeah, he contributed to a good number of goals himself. He scored. I want to say it was because he got called up to the first team at the beginning of the season against Spokane in our first game last year. So he didn't attend the USL Academy Cup, is what it was called at the time, in the spring. Him and Griffin were going to come play with that, but then they got called into the first team, so he ended up playing there and then obviously sticking. But he did play a good number of the academy games with us in the season. He did contribute to a good number of goals. Off the top of my head, I can't remember how many goals, but I mean, it was over at least 7, 8, maybe 9 goals that he scored. So I mean, in terms of goal scoring, yeah, we saw it in the academy for sure. Obviously, we would have loved to see that more in the first team in some moments he got, especially when his first touch as a kicker was a goal, which was really nice. But, but that's a perfect example, though. It's not to say he did well, obviously, with us, and it's not to say he did poorly first team or anything like that. But sometimes it's just a necessary step that players need to take. And look, he's crushing it right now, and it's fantastic that he's doing that. And I hope that we helped in that to some degree, whatever it was, and everything. But he's doing a fantastic job. But yeah, I mean, he produced some goals for us and helped us get to the U20 finals last year. So he was a big part of that, no question.
Yeah, I mean, I have a personal interest in Nick Simmons being Jamaican, and seeing how dire our attack is. I'm hoping that he pans out well. But I remember as a U20 game, I believe it was last year, one of the last U20 games he played in, and you just had him playing in different positions all over the field. Like, he went from attack to the midfield and whatnot. And with that kind of player, like, you could tell that he has something special when you can just plug him in at different positions. Did you have to do any of that this year in the U20 games where you had a guy who was just like, all right, I can plug you in it anywhere and you can elevate this team to a different level?
I think we have one or two guys that can do that for sure. It's different when it comes to certain players. Obviously, Simmons being a more attack minded player, like I try to keep him on a higher line. And personally, I saw him as a inverted winger, coming in from the wide areas, but also having the freedom to stay wide because he can also make runs from behind and be a dynamic attacker from that side. So that's why he played there. But I gave him freedom to come inside to be that midfielder as well, to overload, to let our backs go. So he had that freedom as well to do what he needed to do. And then he played the 9 a couple of times, and then every now and then got into midfield. But we do have a couple, one or two players that are more of a utility player in a sense where, all right, I can plug this guy here, like a Kevin Sanchez, for example. He can play in the midfield as a 6 and 8. He can play as a right back, a left back. He can play as a center back if need be. Max Hanger can also do the same thing where he can play as a 6, 8, a 10. He can play as one of the inverted wingers or wingers in general. He almost played a wing back role, and when we were playing a 3-back system, to allow him to come in and combine with some players as well. So he kind of fit the bill for that. But those are probably the bigger ones in my opinion that can do that. Grafton can obviously play right back, center back. I threw him in the midfield once or twice to do so, but those two in particular are more of the, all right, you know what, I need this right now. Go do this for the team right now. In terms of the attackers, I can put guys on different sides if I want to, but our attack force has been pretty steady Eddie this year and has created a lot of chances and guys just doing their jobs in their spots. So it's been nice to have that and just know that if I plug this guy in, or if I know exactly what I get at my winger here, and all that. Luke Rudder is probably another one, actually, now I think about it, that he can play a right back, a 10, a winger. I put him in at the 9. He's just a busy bee, causes problems, scored a couple goals, as well as scored in the Pathway Classic, scored 2 or 3 goals this year, and helped create a few more. So, I mean, he's probably the other one, honestly. But other than that, everyone's kind of got, all right, this is my role. I do it really well. And, it showed, thankfully.
I want to ask you this question. At this level, is it more so having, like, in terms of development, is it better to have a player play multiple positions and get accustomed to playing all over the field? Or is it better to have them stick to one position and have them play there over multiple minutes?
I mean, I think that's a coaching preference, to be honest. Me as a coach, I like, because I was that type of player. I like having guys that can play multiple spots, but at the same time, you need those special players that are, one trick pony, so to speak. So look at Nick Sarantakos. He's a 9 through and through. He scores goals. That's what he does, and you need players like that. Mika Son, Eli Oliveira, he can he'll run up and down and defend, but he's a 10. You get the ball to his feet, he's going to find the next pass, whatever it might be. And like a guy like Kevin Sanchez, where he can play many different positions if needed. You plug him into the midfield, and you see exactly why he needs to be in that spot. It's a coaching preference, in my opinion. I have one of my good friends. He coaches at Canisius College up in up north, and he was a very good player. Played pro for the Rochester Rhinos and everything. Very, very good player. And one coach, told him that he's good at a lot of things, but he wasn't great at one thing. Which, again, it's not necessarily a bad thing because he was a very good player and he could do a bunch of different things. But that coach in particular, the way he built teams, wanted, all right, you're a 9, you got to be very good at 9. You're an 11, you're very good at 11. So on and so forth. So I would say it's a coaching preference when it comes to that. In terms of developmental stuff coming up, there is a point where I think a player needs to kind of specialize to a degree. But younger than that, though, I do believe players need to be playing multiple different positions, because if they can't play a 360 game, then I don't believe that's really a true footballer, in my opinion. With what I believe as a coach, and how I think players should see the game as well. But I believe players need to have an understanding of all the positions, so that way it makes them better in their 1 or 2 spots that they play in more often. But to have players that can play multiple spots, it does help out a team. So that way, it helps out with rosters where, okay, I know I need to put these 3 guys together. I can take this one player and put him over here because this player can't do that, if that makes sense. So there's a lot that goes into that question, but me as a coach, I like players that can play multiple spots.
And talking about specifying in something, you serve a dual role. Like you're on the first team staff during the senior team games, but you're also the head coach of the U20 team. And this is the second full year doing that role. Obviously, you're going to have time to reflect after you win, speaking into this, spin the USL Academy Cup. But as you go back and reflect over this year, your second year as the head coach of this U20 team, what excited you the most about this group and their potential going forward?
This group in particular this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's a, I mean, maybe because they, it's not to say I wasn't excited for the last group. I think because they got to see it and some of them got to be a part of it, they're a little bit more prepared, if that makes sense. Where last year was our first year, and it's not to say the guys weren't ready, because they were ready. I mean, we went to Tampa for the Academy Cup, and I mean we made it to the finals and only gave up one goal up in there, and then we gave Indy one shot, and unfortunately they took it and beat us with it. But it was if you watch the game, it wasn't them coming at us all game. So it's not that they weren't ready. They were ready to go and dialed in. We just unfortunately didn't get it done when it came to the finals. But it was nice though, because it was a trial year in a sense, and a lot of those guys got to get a feeling for it. And the younger guys, I think, got a better sense of it, just knowing like okay, this is what it's about. This is what it leads into with the first team, and who you're going to get to play with at times and train with when it comes to the first team, and what the games mean and what the level's like. So I think it just prepared them more. But excited in the sense that we have a bunch of guys that have played together again and that are dialed in just like last year. And I'm not saying that I wasn't excited last year for the group. I think I was just equally excited. I think just this group this year, it's just like any year, right? Like, okay, you did it. This group did it one year. Some of these guys got to be part of it. Some others got to see it and be close in it, and then train with them through midway through the year, end of the year. So now they got a better sense of it and are a little bit more prepared going into next year, if that makes sense. So it's, they just get it more, maybe like, okay, hey, this is what we need to do. And then even as a coach, how I've approached the training the past couple of weeks for leading into the finals, it's a little bit different from last year, where I think I was a little bit too focused on X's and O's, where this year, I'm more dialed in with just the competing in general and winning these little battles to allow the tactical part to come out. Because at the end of the day, like, you got to go punch for punch in these games. It's a one and done situation. So I think the group is a little bit more prepared, and that's why I'm excited for them to go into the finals, having been prepared the way this year compared to last year.
Do you feel like you as a coach, I mean, obviously you felt like you have grown, but if you could go back and talk to yourself last year before you started, your first ever game for the U20 team, what's one piece of advice you would give to your former self, now having doing this for 2 years?
Honestly, kind of probably what I just talked about in a way. I think, and it's not to say I was necessarily wrong, just based on how the season is a 10-game season, and it's spread out through a certain amount of time. And obviously we had to deal with ECNL games and everything else going on, first team games and academy guys getting called up. Simplify things maybe a little bit, but truly dial in on the more competitive piece of things, because I think the boys get it tactically, and they've done a great job. Last year, they were dialed in, got the tactics, and it showed. I think there's just I think I would have liked to prepare him in that sense, because I do think like playing in the semifinals against AC Connecticut, they had some older college guys, but it was fine. It was a back and forth game. It was really good for our guys to play, but they just outcompeted us, and then they beat us. Deflection goal for the first goal, whatever. It is what it is. It happens. It still went in the net. And then we got caught on the second one, and we had one or other chance that we could have probably stolen back and made an interesting game later in the game. But I probably would have maybe, again, approached it a little bit differently with some of the training. Also just based on the periodization of the kids for developmental reasons, because it's this group in particular that's training, that's going to Florida this year, has, I mean, literally, I think some of these kids have only had like a week off, and then including this week, maybe like 2 weeks off for the past year and 4 months, 5 months. Like they've been going nonstop, and a lot of those guys last year too had been going for a good long time as well, playing ECNL games, ECNL training, and then first team games or training as well. And I probably would have tweaked training where made a couple of them a little bit more intensive, focused on the competitive piece to keep driving that competitive level up, as opposed to worrying about some of the X's and O's, and then trying to balance out the periodizational piece there. But that's probably one thing that I would have done a little differently, because I think it would have helped us going to the finals, and I think we would have been in the finals maybe if I would have approached things a little bit differently with the preparation.
Yeah. I mean, you'll be there this year. I can't wait to wake up on the 7th and see you guys playing that. But I mean, obviously the U20 team is a young team, and they've seen a lot of their teammates go off to college. I forgot to mention you mentioned them, Nick Tacos going off to High Point University. Um, for the young players still in the team, how valuable is it for them to see that their teammates are going into the first team or going to first team training or moving on to college and getting, being probably more developed than some of their classmates coming into those college programs? How important is for them to see that there is a success plan for them in place and that the succession plan has been working?
I mean, that's ultimately what it's extremely important, because whether you're just doing a youth team and then your top team is your A team and you want players to get to the A team, essentially you want players to be the best they can be. And obviously with what we're doing, and what we have done throughout the year, and the USL has seen it, tenfold from us, is we mean it, that we're playing the kids, we're genuinely using this as a platform for our kids to get to the first team. And then, yes, obviously going to college if their next step is not the pro game, and we want them to succeed. Again, like you said, Nick, look at Nick Stamens, ACC all freshman, player of the year and all this stuff. Like, I mean, that's what you want, and we again hope that it's a tribute to what we're doing with the U20 Academy. And we tell that we have everybody join at the beginning of the year, and we tell them, like, hey, again, everyone's pathway is different. Like, yes, we want everybody to play pro. It's not going to happen though. It's just not. Not everyone's going to be a pro, or you're just not going to be pro at this time that you want to be. You're going to be pro at this time. But that's up to you to keep going. Your next step might be college, so it's extremely important. And one being trusting us as a staff. With the 20s, and then with the first team and everything, what Darren and Mika and Rob have wanted to build with this is we're going to play the kids. And if we hadn't played any kids, then what we're saying, our words carry no weight, and then nobody believes what we're actually doing. So that one in itself, we want people to believe that we're actually doing what we're saying we're going to do. And for us to do it now, the kids actually see it. I think it's a big factor in them seeing this, so that way they understand that this is the real deal, and that they're gonna be 10 times better players than they were when they entered, whether it is getting pro minutes or training with them, and then the next step is pro, or hey, you know what, I landed at the university that I thought I wasn't going to play at, or as you said, I'm a little bit more developed going in, and you're playing more as a freshman as opposed to maybe not playing as much as a freshman, and that's what you want. Because obviously we'd love for the guys to go in as freshmen and make immediate impacts with college, where you see it a lot of times, a lot of guys go in as freshmen and unfortunately don't get the chance to make that impact. And whether they're ready or not, that's their coach's call, and you got to respect it either way. But we'd like to believe that, playing with us and us doing what we're doing, it's going to make them better players with whatever what's next for them.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, that is great. That is great. Kind of lost my transition there for a second. Sorry. As we look ahead, the thing that we really want you to talk about was the USL Academy Cup, and you guys open up. It's a straight knockout tournament. These games are bang, bang, bang games every day from the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. Not a lot of rest on there in between, but you guys open up against San Antonio FC, who has a U20 team there. I mean, the senior team is in the USL Championship, but you guys are also in the same side in the bracket as Indy 11, Westchester Pioneers, Utah. I was about to say Chattanooga Red Wolves, Utah Red Wolves.
Yes.
Orange County and two other teams there. How how excited for you to get down there, and get dug in and correct the wrongs of last season. We've been saying that a lot, but it feels like this team particularly is on a mission um, to go win this trophy.
Oh, no question. Yeah, we're the boys are ready. I mean, we had training last night, and we had just a lot of fun in general. We actually had a couple of the 20s that were with us this year and last year
Mm,
come join the session. To come out and just play with us again and be a part of it because that's what we're doing. And they're excited for us to get down there and play and compete for this. And obviously, with Indy beating us last year in the Tampa Academy Cup, we want to play them again. And then not making it as far as last year in the finals. I mean, we made the semis, which is great, but then lost the third place game. It is what it is. So top four, like that's still an accomplishment all in itself for the first year. But we're definitely, we want to be playing for first place. That's
yeah.
that's the goal, no matter what. If we can get Indy again in the second game of the tourney, great. But at the end of the day, the boys know it's one and done. So right now we just got to worry about San Antonio and get there and take care of business. And we're excited to take on that first game and then take a breath and then deal with what's next.
Yeah. You guys obviously we talked about it before, but you guys dominated the South Atlantic, region again. How much do you think that experience is going to help this team, be mentally prepared and ready for these games that are really is a different style? You guys, started the season off, had a big break, came back and finished it up, and now you guys are playing almost 4 games in 4 days.
Yeah. So I mean, so one, the boys playing ECNL in tournament and they're doing those tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
It actually helps in a sense. And obviously there are
Okay.
guys that played this in last year where that format in general, it helps with having games every day and playing. The games are 70 minutes long, so they're a lot shorter than regular games, which is kind of a bummer. We'd like for them to be a little bit longer. We understand why, but so it puts a little more emphasis on taking care of business. And so, I mean, this season, I think everything from game one against Miami and losing that, and then tying, and then winning in the Pathway Classic, and then playing in our South Atlantic League, I think it's prepared us a great deal because I know you said dominating. It's great to hear that, but unfortunately, I don't think we necessarily dominated as much as we wanted to because last year we were 9-1 and 0, where we won
Yeah.
9 games and only lost one to Tobacco Road, and then this year we only lost one game to NCFC, but we actually did win on the road this year, which was very unfortunate. But it is what it is. But I mean, what an accomplishment the boys have had the past 2 years, though, having a
Mhm.
perfect record at City Stadium, which is nice. 5 wins last year and 5 wins this year, so that that's what helps dominate in that sense and get us there. But it prepared us because we had games where we dominated and we just couldn't buy a goal. Our second game at Wake FC, we were all over them. I mean, they had one shot, and their goalkeeper stood on their head. They made some great tackles, good defensive effort by that team, but we just couldn't buy a goal. And one goal in that game would have made the end of the season a lot less stressful for us. And then you go to Salem City, and same thing. We come out off kickoff with like a 14 pass sequence and make the keeper make a save, and we're just like, okay, this is gonna be a good game. Like we started hot, and then unfortunately we just couldn't find a goal, and then we give up a goal on our own. Good goal by them, and it was a long game after that. After already having a lightning thunder weather delay, and that's a long bus ride home if we don't get any points there. And don't care how the ball goes in the back of the net. We managed to get a deflection goal ourselves in the last like 3 minutes and almost snuck in another one later. So we stole a point there, and that's why you keep playing. So it was a good stress test, our first one of the year.
Mhm.
And then we go to Tobacco Road and we take a 4-1 lead, and we're like, all right, this is in the bag in a sense. And then we just, unfortunately, we took our foot off the gas, and they punished us and put 3 on us in about 20 minutes and tied it back up with 5-7 minutes remaining, and they almost took one back, and then we almost got one to win it as well, and we had chances to win it late in that game. So again, another good stress test. And then uh, the one goal we talked about, one goal changing a lot of things. Well, obviously that that game too, where we had another opportunity to win it. One goal makes a difference. I think the next game was a big turning point for us in the year because we tied 3 games in a row, all away, and we needed points based on what was happening with other teams in the league, and played a very tough Virginia United team who had some former D1 talent on there from George Mason and UVA, actually, one of their players. But I mean, they had a really good team and a couple of talented young players and a couple of really good, solid older players too. And another lightning delay home game, and then Kevin Sanchez gets the goal off of Nico's assist in the 90, third minute, whatever it was, 90 plus minutes. That one goal really was a big turning point for us in the year, because obviously we went on to win a couple games in a row after that. And then we unfortunately lost against NCFC away, unfortunately went down a man 30 minutes in the game, and, battled back to get 1-1 in like the 70th or so. And NCFC put one on us in the literally the last kick of the game to win the game there. But had we won one of our other games that we tied, that game wouldn't have mattered. And based on points in the season up to that game at NCFC, had we just taken care of one more game, even 2, we would have already clinched the league and had a couple more wins and dominated more. So that one goal, however you look at it, was a big difference for us for the Virginia United game. But it's also the one goal we gave up at Salem City, or the one extra goal we gave up at Tobacco Road, that made a big difference. And obviously NCFC, if you look at it like that, if we would have tied them, it would have been different too. But then we obviously went on to beat them at City Stadium, which was nice. And we needed to beat NCFC won their last couple of games, and it came down to us and them again for the South Atlantic Championship at City Stadium. And what better way to win it against NCFC again at City Stadium? So I mean, the whole season, I think, is played a tremendous piece in preparing the boys for the U20 finals this year. And we got 3 more training sessions coming up before we leave, and I believe this has put us through a good deal of stress, which that's what we had to deal with last year against AC Connecticut, going down and just playing against a tough team. Not saying that team didn't handle stress well, because we dominated games and we crushed the league and everything, and we just unfortunately couldn't get it done. And I think that was preparation on my part. So I think the season's kind of helped us with how it went to help prepare, in addition to how we've been directly preparing for the finals this year.
Yeah. I want to ask you a question about playing at City Stadium. Unlike some teams, they probably play in smaller venues with no fans or mostly family. The community really does come out for the U20 teams. The Red Army comes out, and various people come out to see this team play. You guys play in a pro stadium. How much of an advantage do you think that gives your team when they play against these other academy or U20 programs?
I mean, I think it's kind of I think it's a double-edged sword, really, kind of like the first team, where even the pro teams, there's teams that play in college stadiums, and not to take away from college stadium, you got football lines and all this other stuff there, where City Stadium is City Stadium, proper grass pitch, and stadium fans and all that stuff, where some stadiums don't get a lot of fans. So it's an advantage to us, because it shell shocks some kids for sure to come in and go, oh wow, okay, music playing, announcing, all this stuff, big screen, like it can be a lot to take in. But at the same time, I always liked playing away. When I was playing, I always liked going to other people's houses and ruining their day. So what better motivation to have to go, oh man, this is freaking sweet. You get to play at this place, don't waste the opportunity. Let's go ruin someone's day. That's the way to look at it. And that's the way I see it. So double-edged sword in a sense. Big advantage, because I don't think players are used to it. And it's we're used to it, because obviously we get to train on it too. And it's an advantage all on its own to play on that size pitch and grass and the surface, where a lot of these teams are still used to playing on turf, and maybe just not as quality of grass fields. But then at the same time, if you get, like an NCFC, for example, I mean, I'm sure, we handled things, but I'm sure you give them another chance, like they would probably come back a little bit differently, ready to ruin someone's day. And, Virginia United almost did that to us on their first visit this year. So advantage for sure, but I also think a little bit of a disadvantage to a degree because, again, it's an opportunity for someone to come in and just embarrass us in our home. Thankfully, we didn't let that happen.
No. Look, this year was uniquely difficult for the senior side. So see the U20 do so good at home and perform well. It was a bright spot. Made much better days for the podcast. Last question. I want to ask you this before we get up out of here, and I'll let you get back to your family and everything. Obviously, you guys have not transported, I shouldn't say that, but help assist a lot of guys go up to the first team. We see Cappelletti Kahl, Landon Johnson, James Stanton, and others playing the minutes for the first team. Is there any chance we can see them play in the U20 Cup, or is that ship sail? Is that available for them?
They did their piece.
So they're done. They're an official alumni stage.
Yeah, they set the foundation for the boys last year, and they did a fantastic job of doing so.
I understand. Well, Coach Connor, man, we just wish you all the best down there. Once again, I just want to say thank you for doing this. We wish you guys all the best down there. Can't wait to celebrate you guys on the 8th when you guys come back up here in Richmond with that trophy, man.
That's right. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. As always, listeners, we just want to say thank you for taking the time of your day for listening to our podcast. Without you, we couldn't do this and wouldn't want to do this. So if you can, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and share with a friend. For Coach Connor and myself here at River City 93, we will holler at you guys next time. Be easy and be safe, and happy holidays. Talk to you guys later. Peace.